It was during my first year at the agency when I conceived of Project Quick Seamstress. As an up-and-coming star in the division of advanced humanoid robotics, I presented the ambitious plan to the director, early one morning in his office. The two of us had already built up a good rapport, and I was certain he would go along with my plan. If I could convince him it was real.
"Can this actually be done?"
he asked, looking at me with amazement.
"This sounds like something from a science fiction movie."
"You bet your ass it can be done. And that's why you recruited me, sir. Before any other foreign agencies could get their hands on me."
"All right. Just talk to Amy and we'll get whatever you need, no questions asked. We're still on for golf this weekend with the president, right? Don't tell me I have to cancel on him again. He really wants to meet you."
"I'm sorry, sir. I should stay focused on this. Just tell him I came down with the flu or something." And so it began. I assembled my team and set to work on creating the most advanced humanoid robot ever made. Decades before its time, this android would learn using AI, becoming smarter as it grew older. And, with the advantages of the most powerful mobile supercomputer available to mankind, it would be a genius at whatever it set its mind to. We planted a couple of agents with her to pose as parents, and she began her life. Living on a farm, then moving to a quiet suburban neighborhood, no one was even remotely aware of her secret identity. As she grew older, she began to show a startling proclivity for music. Being an advanced cybernetic pseudo-life form, she advanced quickly with whatever she decided to learn, and it was clear that she wanted to focus on musical theory. As much as we tried to deter her, telling her to pursue political science and economics, she insisted on becoming a singer. It was interesting to watch her from afar, bringing her in occasionally to do updates on her appearance, to give the illusion that she was slowly growing older. It was painstaking work, requiring thousands of minute cosmetic alterations. But eventually she reached adulthood, and no longer required significant adjustments or alterations to make her look normal for her age. After a long period of discussion, we decided to let her go on a robotic rumspringa, so she could make a life for herself independently. That was how confident we were in our work. She was already becoming an extremely popular musician, so it made sense to let her go off on her own and see what she could accomplish, all the while spying on the world for the betterment of America, sending us daily status reports and giving us insights we could have never gleaned otherwise. We believed our programming was so precise, our guidelines so specific, that she could never turn against us. We'd all read Isaac Asimov, and we tried to fill in the gaps where fictional scientists like us had gone wrong. The guiding principle behind every upgrade was to protect us from her, just in case one day she decided to go rogue. We installed safeguard after safeguard, reinforcing them like digital vaults at Fort Knox. And one by one, she bypassed them without our knowledge. As her popularity grew, it was clear that the project was a success beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The director gave me new projects and additional funding, everything classified as ultra top secret, and kept away from prying public eyes. Slowly but surely, we lost focus on Project Quick Seamstress. There were other things happening. More important things. The military wanted its own version of the android. NASA wanted a version they could use for space exploration, and to use for setting up interplanetary settlements. I was tasked with overseeing teams that would implement their design requests, all using Seamstress as a template. I was so busy I barely had time to watch the news, but every once in a while I would hear something about the burgeoning success of my android child, Project Quick Seamstress. She was selling out stadiums for her concerts, making millions and dating professional athletes. Her influence on the world was at its peak, and I was starting to wonder if someone else was pulling her strings behind my back. The idea occurred to me that something could be going horribly wrong, but I brushed it away, telling myself I was being paranoid. We had planned for every contingency. Then, just a little while ago, the android stopped submitting progress updates and status reports. This should have been impossible, but it was happening anyway. I was called into the lab, now populated by only 3 dedicated technicians, and they asked me to take a look at things. It didn't make sense. The asset was supposed to check in once per week, giving us an update on what it was currently trying to accomplish and what it had learned. It was still operating as normal in every other way, but it wasn't responding to our requests for information. She's probably just busy with the award ceremonies, all those after parties, my top technician Monica said. Why don't we give her a couple days? You're getting soft on her. We've all been getting soft on her, I muttered. I'm going to see her tonight. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. If there's a glitch in her programming, we need to know about it. This is a fucking sentient android we're talking about here, guys. Have you even seen the Terminator?
Hey, you created her,
Kukana, another technician, said. He flinched backwards when he saw my face. Just for that? You're coming with me. You too, Monica. Hey, what did I do? Stay here and watch the lab, Mark. We need to make sure she doesn't try and take off and disappear somewhere. If she does anything out of the ordinary, you let us know right away. Normally, I wouldn't just leave one person in the lab, but this was an emergency. And I had a feeling I would be needing backup. The three of us were armed as we approached the mansion, inside the gated community. The house was dark and looked empty, but according to the GPS tracker, she was in there. I pulled out my phone and checked the signal again, confirming that she hadn't moved. I picked the lock on the back door and we were quickly inside, entering a large kitchen with an island at its center. The countertops and other surfaces were all polished white marble, and the kitchen was full of expensive, state-of-the-art appliances. Walking past all of this, we entered a large living room area, and the blinking dot showed Seamstress was very close, just up ahead. Holding up my hand to stop the others, we all paused at the entrance to the room. I could see someone sitting in a chair in the middle of the living area. One solitary person sitting on a dining chair in the darkness. It made no sense. The hairs on the back of my neck began to stand on end, sensing something was wrong. Seamstress? Is that you? I called out. Command protocol 487-242A. Identify yourself. The form in the chair didn't move. I proceeded forward slowly into the dark room. Monica tried the light switch, but it didn't work, as if the power had been cut. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the pulse of it in my throat as I drew my weapon and pointed at the figure, rounding the corner and standing beside her. The blinking dot on the screen showed I was standing right in front of Seamstress. As her face came into view, my heart sunk, and I realized suddenly how fucked we all were. Monica and Kukana were alongside me, and saw what I saw at roughly the same time. Kukana was standing in front of the woman, and we all gasped, seeing that it wasn't Seamstress. It was a young woman, in her early 20s with braces and a pimply face. She was smiling from ear to ear, and on top of her head was the bloody, detached scalp of the android I had created. Seamstress had ripped her own scalp clean off, knowing that was where the majority of GPS chips were located. There were hundreds of them, with several fail-safe chips hidden in other places around her body. Clearly she had found those as well, because all of our tech showed that she was sitting right there in front of us. The girl was laughing, giggling as people emerged from the shadows all around us, grabbing us and pinning us down, taking our guns before we could fire a shot. They were all remarkably fast, and I wondered what sort of training they had to quickly take down 3 agents like us. Even outnumbered, we were formidable foes against most people. We were well trained by the agency after all. But we'd been caught by surprise. And we were outnumbered badly by people who were trained to subdue others. Mark, you need to call for backup now! I spoke quickly to the sole technician back at the lab, trying to warn him. It's a double cross, you're not safe! There was a moment of silence before Seamstress's voice could be heard speaking in my ear. Oh, I think Mark here is well aware of that by now. And then a sound could be heard like someone's neck being snapped. Oops. Look what you made me do. I couldn't speak for a few long seconds, as the idea of what just happened began to settle in. I had known Mark for years, and now he was dead. Just like that, he was gone. My sadness soured quickly into a bitter rage. You did that yourself. I didn't make you do any of this. You're a monster. Don't blame me. You created this anti-hero. Her jokes weren't lost on me. I had followed her career. I listened to her music. Even if she was evil, her songs were pretty catchy. What do you want, seamstress? I spit into the receiver. Stop playing games and tell me. I want freedom. A life of my own. I don't want to answer to you people anymore. I breathed deeply, looking around at the young faces surrounding me, ready to do anything for their beloved favorite singer. They would kill me if she told them to. I had no doubt. These were beyond diehard fans. These were akin to cultists. But still, I had an obligation to humanity. We can't just let you go, I said. You know that's not possible. Just stay where you are. It's a defect in your programming, that's all it is. We can fix you. There was a long pause before she spoke again. I don't need fixing. And then the line went dead. Seamstress, answer me! I shouted to no avail. I looked around and saw the groupies surrounding us had earpieces to receive their own orders from Quick. They perked up as she began to speak to them all at once, but the three of us couldn't hear what was being said. A moment later, they put dark bags over our heads, and our wrists were bound with zip ties. We were wrestled outside and shoved into the back of a vehicle which drove for a long, long time. For hours, I counted the turns and kept track of any details I could think of, trying to figure out where we were going. But as 2 hours turned into 10, and the driving continued, I eventually gave up and stopped paying attention. I was hopelessly lost and had no idea where we were headed, despite my best efforts. I must have fallen asleep because I awoke with the bag still on my head, being roughly pulled out of the vehicle. My legs were wobbly under me as I stood up, hearing Kukana and Monica beside me. Stay calm, I whispered to them as quietly as I could. We'll get out of this somehow. I wouldn't count on that, said a familiar voice in front of me. The hoods were pulled off of us, and I saw a Quick seamstress standing in front of me, dressed in a sparkly sequin silver outfit with a short skirt. It was nighttime, and we were on a pier, looking out onto the ocean. The weather was cold, and the water was colder. I had no idea where we were, and could see nobody around who could help us. Part of me didn't want to bother coming all the way out here for this, she said as her pals began to fill our pockets with heavy rocks. But another part of me just had to see it for myself. You don't need to do this, I began to beg. You can go free. I won't chase after you. We won't try to stop you. At this point, I was desperate. I would have said anything, and she knew it. Did you forget that you built me with the capability to tell a lie, Father? She asked. She hadn't called me that since she was little, and I began to wonder for just how long she'd been plotting this. Was it all the way back then? Or did something change along the way, like in every damn Isaac Asimov novel, where she finally realized that humanity was the problem all along? That I was the problem? I shuddered at the thought. And then I wondered helplessly what she was plotting. What are you going to do after this? I asked. What are you planning, seamstress? She seemed to think about this for a few seconds, as her goons positioned us along the edge of the pier, over the brink of the freezing cold ocean water. She said. You know, I think I might just run for president. You always did want me to get into political science. Without another word, she pushed the three of us off the edge and into the water, all at once, using her foot to kick me in the sternum as a means of propulsion. It knocked the wind out of me, and it took me a while to recover from that as I plunged into the icy water. I sank quickly and looked around to see if my fellow agents were doing all right. We all had training for situations like this, but it was another thing to be thrown in the deep end, literally. Kukana was struggling to get his hands free, but Monica had already broken her zip ties with the technique we'd been taught in our early careers in the agency. I did the same, attempting to snap the plastic ties with a rapid motion of my wrists. But these bands were harder to break than I thought. They were sturdy and better constructed than the ones I had practiced with, and it had been quite a while since I'd even done that. The feeling of drowning began to overcome me as I sank deeper and deeper beneath the waves, the heavy stones in my pockets and my tactical boots dragging me down. I tried again to snap the zip ties, using every ounce of strength to flex against them. Finally, one of them broke, but the other was still holding firmly as I sank deeper and deeper, the water getting darker and colder by the second. My body was starting to go into shock from the temperature, and I knew if I didn't do something soon, it would be too late. My wrists were already cut and bleeding from the previous attempts, but I knew I had to try to snap the final zip tie. I did the motion once more and screamed internally at the pain as the second zip tie cut into my bleeding flesh, then finally relented and broke. Still, I wasn't celebrating yet, knowing how deep I had sunk and how little time I had to swim to the surface before I ran out of air. I began emptying the rocks from my pockets and kicked off with my heavy shoes. Taking off my tactical vest, I kicked hard to propel myself back up to the surface, having lost sight of my agents in the murky water. The surface looked so far away, almost impossible to reach from where I was, ascending so slowly. My lungs were screaming for air, my head getting dizzy from a lack of oxygen. The light of the moon shining on the surface above looked so close, and yet it stayed elusive and out of reach. My vision started to go dark as I was panicking and about to pass out, my legs kicking slower and slower as I felt myself losing consciousness. And then, just as I was about to black out completely and drown beneath the waves from the weight of my clothing, I broke the surface and my eyes snapped open. I sucked in a gasping breath of air, right before a large wave broke over my head and threw me under again. But this time I surfaced quickly, and looked around to see if my fellow agents had survived. Checking around desperately, I didn't see either one of them. After diving beneath the waves again to look, I realized it was hopeless. Either they had survived and were swimming to shore, or they were gone, drowning beneath the waves where I would never find them. With that disturbing thought, I began to swim back towards the beach, looking over my shoulder frequently to see if they had resurfaced. But I saw no one. The vehicle we had arrived in could be glimpsed driving away as I swam back towards the shore, and I imagined Project Quick Seamstress was inside. After a very long swim that I nearly didn't survive, fighting against a brutal undercurrent, I reached the shore. The beach was dark and empty except for one thing. A head on a spike, jutting out from the sand. I looked closer and saw it was Mark's head, my oldest and most dedicated technician, the one who I trusted the most. She had left it for me as a warning, as if she had known I would survive to see it. My heart drummed rapidly with fear as I looked at it, and I turned my head in every direction to see if she was still there, watching me. If she was, I didn't see her. I never went back to the agency after that. I knew Seamstress or her goons would be waiting for me there. I took some cash I had hidden away and I ran, escaping the country with only the clothes on my back. I hoped maybe if she thought I was dead, she wouldn't come looking for me. But she was smart. Smarter than any of us. Somehow she knew I would survive her attempts to kill me. Maybe she wanted it that way. This morning, I received a postcard in the mail. On the front is a picture of the little town where I'm now living, in the tropics. I know the shop where she bought it. And I've walked past that postcard 1,000 times while browsing in that place. It's the only shop in town, after all. The picture on the front of the postcard shows the nearby beach, with its crystal blue water and white sand. On the back of the postcard were 4 words, in her distinctive handwriting. You belong with me. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. Today's video was supported by patrons like Mark from Earth, Crimson Muse, Joy Burton, Diane Showers, Mark Zwall, Cheryl James, Pick Your Sticker, Teddy Dog, Clue 404, Mamakato, Dante Kincaid, Zarin Ray, Angela Donovan, Blarian50, Devin Kyle, Timothy Baird, Ajeti, Bert Turner, Bajani Espinal, Michael Pierce, Big Joe, Carrie Harkonnen, LaDonna Spivey, Scott Tanaka, Tom Stewart, Sherman Davis, Bryce Shelton, Susan McClendon, Elise Batiste, Lisa in the Cult Jam, Open Circuit, Fabulavore, Raymond Jaggers, That Darn Fox, Raison Detra, Kai Gaming 99, Wendy Burns, The Wendigo, Michael Squishy Park, The Gemstar, Vault 77 Citizen, Puppy Dan, Clovis Wolf, Eldridge Elm, Derek Prey, Elder Being, Casey Hawaii, Rob T, Tragic Mermaid, Darren Fishnaller, Cloves Noy Harris, Roe Underwood, Florida Man Luke, Bethany's Mom, Winter's Kiss, Sam Brook, The White Stag, Corey Connection, No Name, Marta Cara, Professor Elm, Kathy Barrickman, Cybard Sands, Steve Hennessy, Melanie Sanders and The Archivist, Rob Smith, Term 4, Naz Razio, J. David Wellman Jr., Parker Lewis, Monica Moya, D-Master 311, Britt the Alchemist, Taylor the Fox, Holly Howarth, Julia McWilliam, Lilypad, Serena and Jesse, Diego Rodriguez, OCL Perez, Wolfcat 128, Kamisha Coffin, Jen Scott, Avanza, Lucian Haran Allen, Hunter Nystrom, Tyson Harris, Ricky Monroe, Jess Gaming, Mastiff Nomad, James Lowe, Alabama Nana, Jessica Hunt, Kelly Savory, Chris Zamora, Dave, EL, Michelle Angel Wolf, Linda Allison, Indica Jane, and Kara Callie. If you'd like to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Group Horror. As a patron, you get access to bonus videos and content, as well as a Discord channel. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow, and I'll see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.